um, specific gravity after pectinase. Because it released a little bit more. So the reading on the day, I always take a reading right before I pitch, and sometimes it's a little bit different from when I mixed it up the day before.
Yeah, that makes sense. I had read that wineries will you toss in pectinase during the crushing of the grapes to increase the extraction. Yeah, so that would make sense, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, typically the only time I use pectinase before the fermentation is when I'm pressing, and that's just because it helps release the juice. And I've pressed pear, and that works pretty well. And I've pressed apples and pectinase and or freeze.
I've also read that they can speed up the aging process, the pectinase, at least in grape wines. I don't know in other fruit wines, but I remember reading somewhere that adding pectin decreases the amount of time.
Which is interesting because pectinase is also what you can basically sprinkle on apples, on sliced apples, to how they go brown like almost as soon as you slice them. It's if you sprinkle, there's a lemon juice and like pectinase thing that you can sprinkle on them, and they basically keep them from doing that.
We're back?
We're back. I don't know what happened there. We just suddenly went sideways for a second.
Okay, where did I leave off?
Yeah, we were talking about pectinase and its effect on aging.
Okay. Yeah, I have not heard that, and I don't know that I would have noticed any effects from that in my own brews.
Okay. Mine don't last long enough for that to be a thing. But if you're, if you are going to age, if you're going to lay down some wine with, some mead with an eye to how long can I keep this, then I think it bears researching to see if that's a thing. I don't know. So that's a really good question. There you go. There's your homework, Manny.
Okay, I'll look it up.
Yeah, because we'll probably come back to this because week after next we've got Ken for our 1-year anniversary show. Yay! Yeah, he's been doing this for a whole year. Ken's going to come back, and while we were planning on doing Fruit 1 and Fruit 2 in subsequent weeks, because we've got Ken in 2 weeks, we're going to do Fruit 2 in 2 weeks when Ken, who is I think a fruit god, he does so much with fruit, and he's got his own fruit supplies, so he knows a lot about fruit from basically plant to mead, and everything in between. So I think he's going to be able to bring a lot to the table on, part of what we've talked about here, and then also management of the fruit in the mead.
And perhaps also upscaling it too.
Yeah, totally. And I think that'll be interesting for those out there that are thinking about going pro or even just going to bigger batches.
Yep.
So that will, we'll definitely, pick that up. Because I'm sitting here thinking, we need to talk about cat management, but no, that happens in Fruit 2. So that's something.
Not necessarily.
Well, but I think we can probably, bring, because I've already convinced Ken to stay for the entire show. So.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. So
gotta leave something to talk about.
Right. We could pick his brains about that. We're gonna get some of it in the first part, but. I've let him know that, yes, we want to talk about transmead, but we really want to pick his brains about fruit.
Okay. Well, what I will say on cap management is
punching down.
Fruit floats for the most part.
Yeah.
And yeah. You want to keep it saturated. You want to keep it submerged as much as possible, and if it won't stay submerged, you want to keep cycling it so that different bits are exposed all the time.
Yep.
And that, even just pushing the fruit bag down a couple of times a day is usually good enough, because what happens is the bits that are not underwater can sometimes do things other than ferment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Especially if you got something that's prone to picking up mold, like raspberries are really bad. Raspberries and blackberries are really bad for that. So
so are pears.
Yeah. So, punching down your fruit and keeping that wet is really, really important. It forms what they call a cap. Basically, it all floats up and it kind of sticks together, and you basically got a hat on top of the mead made out of fruit. And so
made out of fruit sludge.
Sludge, yeah.
And also the fun thing with that is it tends to catch air bubbles and become very big sometimes.
Yeah.
And when people talk about fruit escaping through the airlock, that's what's happened.
Well, it's there's been air fruit pits, is what it is.
Yeah, well, what happens is you get all kinds of air entrainment from the carbon dioxide trying to bubble its way through your fruit cap.
Which is all mushed together.
Yeah, which is all mushed together, and it makes it very difficult for the carbon dioxide to escape. So a lot of times it'll just push its way out and take fruit with it, and bam, fruit in your airlock.
Mm-hmm.
And if it clog your airlock, then sometimes things get explosive.
Uh-huh. And not only that, when you go to punch it down, be aware that there could be carbon dioxide under there, so you get what amounts to lava bubbles in your fruit. And,
yeah.
And when you
usually
punch it down, you can get a little bit of blowback, So.
Yeah, usually what I try to do when I go in there is I've got the long-handled spoon, and I just try to sort of push the bag against the bottom and make it, it's... You remember being a kid and having air in your bathing suit and trying to squish it out? Yeah, same
like
deal.
That, yeah.
Bloop.
Yeah. Well, and there are those now. If you want to keep it submerged, and I have seen people do this, is they'll sanitize a big piece of something heavy and smooth, so no crevices or whatever that bad stuff can get into. But like say I want to say a big rock, but I'm not sure. Can you say
rock, a glass?
Rock, big piece of glass,
if it's
something heavy.
If it's a smooth rock, probably.
Yeah. Tie the bag to it, or even put it right in the bag.
Put it in the bag.
Put it in the bag, tie the bag shut, throw the whole thing in, and drown it.
One of the things I have heard people use is aquarium marbles, because if they're fish safe, they've got to be food grade.
Yeah, exactly.
Because fish are far more sensitive than we are. So anything that's aquarium safe, you should be able to stick in your mead.
And if you're going to use something small like aquarium marbles, then put the marbles in a separate, smaller bag and put them inside the bigger bag, or you'll never get them all out of the gooey mess that your fruit is going to become. So just be aware of that. No, I haven't done that, but yeah, I probably would have had I tried aquarium marbles. I just never had any aquarium marbles to try it with. But yeah, I mean
I've never bothered with that, but that's because I'm going in and doing aeration anyways.
Right.
And if I have to go and do that, I have to push trying to do aeration with a fruit bag. That's another fun thing. I would be really, really careful if you're trying to use a drill attachment for aeration if you've got a fruit bag in there.
Catch that fruit bag in the drill and you're doomed, man. Yeah.
Sounds really, really messy. So usually what I do is I get the long-handled spoon, sanitize it, and press the bag either up against the bottom or up against the side, and then use a whisk until my wrist gets hurt.
Yeah. Or, one of the things that I've done is get somebody else to hold the bag up against the side with the long-handled spoon while you use the drill. Because then just make sure the drill stays away from that, and not, where it can catch that bag. But, yeah, just be careful because, bags and drills, they don't play nicely together, no.
Yeah. All right, let's see. What else have we got to talk about?
We covered everything we had for tonight.
Just about.
And we hit it right almost an hour, or a little over an hour, which is cool.
And we were worried about an hour of stuff.
We were, yeah.
Come on, we can talk about fruit for an hour.
I know, right?
Now, one of the things I did want to talk about is what to do with the fruit bag when you're done with it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
One of my favorite things to do is, especially if it's,
ice cream.
A fruit well, if it's a fruit that I worked really hard on, like, say, red currants, which are a pain in the arse because you got to strip every little berry off of all the little stems and wash them all and sort them all, and that's after you brave the mosquitoes to get them off the bush.
Yeah.
I don't like to just throw them out while there's still a little bit of life left in them. Mm-hmm. So if they're not completely whitewashed out, what I'll do is I'll take the fruit bag, and if I made a 5-gallon batch of... If I made a 5-gallon batch of red currant wine, then I'll take the bag out and make a 3-gallon batch of mead over top of it. And I just take the fruit bag, put it into another fermenter, pour honey over it, add water, get it up to a specific gravity I'm happy with. And the other nice thing about doing that is if you happen to be the type who puts a little bit extra in your fermenting bucket just so that you'll have enough when you rack it, then it's a really good place to put the dregs. Because, if you've got a bunch of spent yeast and a bunch of, fruit crud, there's no reason you can't put that into the next batch.
Yeah. Well, it's like reusing. It's like reusing your yeast cake from your beer.
Yeah, not quite as much because the fruit is finite and the yeast will replenish itself.
True. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, as long as you don't actually, one of the reasons why I started doing the second run melomels is because I didn't need to boil the honey. Whereas if I was using sugar, I'd have to boil it and then I'd let it cool. Otherwise, I'd kill whatever yeast was in there.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I'd pour 1 kilogram of honey, because I get it in kilogram jars, kilogram of honey over top of the fruit bag for 1 gallon, or 3 kilograms for a 3-gallon batch, and then just top it up with water and let it go. And, give it another week or two in there, and oftentimes that's when I start experimenting with spices and vanilla and stuff like that. So I've done a lot of really interesting experimental batches that way, and that's actually how I discovered I really don't like dry meads, because that's what that makes, is a dry mel. And I also discovered when I brought some of those over to share with my mom, she really likes the dry ones.
Nice.
So yeah, that's all of these things are learning experiences, and also doing a second run. The fruit flavor is not as in your face; it's a lot more muted. But that's also a nice excuse if you were making a wine before, of seeing how it's going to work with the honey.
Yeah, it is, and it's what gives you that experimentation space that you might not want to do in a 5-gallon batch.
Exactly. And, you just leave it in for another week and then pull it out, let it do its thing. And another thing I've done, now, again, it has to do with your processing. Like, if I'm doing apples or pears, I don't core them, so they're no good to put on ice cream afterwards.
No.
But, stuff like strawberries or pumpkin or whatever, that's okay, because there wasn't anything you weren't going to eat in there anyway.
Well, and for those
as long as they're not creepy white strawberries.
Yeah, the ghost strawberries were a little weird. Yeah, but I'll tell you what, they still had some flavor left, and it's basically vanilla ice cream, ghost strawberries, mix them all up. You can't hardly tell. They don't look as scary, But yeah, I mean, for those of you going, ew, used fruit, and it's like, no, it's alcoholic used fruit.
It's alcoholic used. But remember, it's alcoholic used fruit with the sugar gone, so it is going to taste a little bit different, and you may want to sweeten it up significantly in order to make it taste like the fruit it was.
Yeah, totally.
Because
if you're putting it in Haagen-Dazs, it doesn't really, there's enough sugar there to take care of it.
I'll take your word for it. I'm too cheap for Haagen-Dazs.
I don't buy it that often, but if you've got these, these leftover alcoholic strawberries, then you don't want to put any.
Yeah, and actually, a fun thing to do with the alcoholic strawberries is freeze them in an ice cube tray, and then empty the ice cube tray into a freezer bag or a plastic container or something, and then you've got like bite-sized pieces that you can thaw one at a time instead of having to either use it all at once or chip it off of a giant block of the stuff.
Or my favorite is booze shakes.
Yeah, I've done that too, but I really find you need to add some sugar to those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's totally okay. You can even add some honey if you want to. So booze shakes with honey and alcoholic fruit and Bob's your uncle. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
I got a whole room full of people really smashed on those things one night. They had no idea because you can't taste the alcohol, so they had no idea. They was like booze shakes and like wonderful, not thinking. And so they're like sucking these down, going, "Man, these are really good." Next thing you know, somebody's dancing on the table and somebody else in the bathroom throwing up, and it was pretty amusing. Because I knew what I was getting into, so I'm just sipping mine, and they're all like tanking these things down, going, "Can you make more of these?" We we had a smoothie machine, so it was like smoothies for everybody.
That's sneaky.
Oh boy!
Yeah, it was terrible.
Now, if you're like me and you've got compost pickup, which our city does,
they make great compost.
Compost in my place is only picked up once a week. So, if you happen to be doing your pulling out of the fruit bag and disposing of the contents therein the day after the compost is picked up, boy, are you going to have a lot of fruit flies if you just dump it straight into the green bin.
Oh, yeah.
So, my trick with that is I have a couple of honey buckets with lids. and I will put one of those. I'll dump the contents into